Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Rusev back. I am doing a release update today for JRealm. We've got some fun new features to go over. I've also finished my move, which is great. So I'm going to be recording on a slightly different setup with a bigger screen. So hopefully, hopefully it looks good in the video. I'm going to see, but maybe I'll have to re-record this. Hopefully not. So yeah, the change today is a couple. So I've actually done 2 version bumps. We went from 2.8 to 3.0, right? I didn't feel the need for an intermediate release, so just went ahead to 0.3.0. But this is a pretty big one, and it's pretty exciting to share. We actually finally have login and data persistence for JRealm, right? So previously, if you had played it or watched the videos, you'd spawn in with a new character at the start of every session, and that character's stats and progression items they'd pick up would not carry over to the next time you'd log in. So that's fine for testing and everything, but I've needed to get this set up for a while, and I've started and worked on it in some of the live coding sessions. I did a lot of work on it offline just because there was so much testing and new stuff, but I figured I'll just go over it now. And moving forward, I'll obviously include any work on this in live coding sessions. But I wanted to get this out because it's a big change to the game overall, right? The JRealm server and this new data project are actually now they're joined at the hip. Well, so the server is required to have access via HTTP. I think it's port 8885. Yeah, 8085 to be able to get player data, save player data, and do any other data-related activities. So let's go over the release notes really quick. So yeah, the summary is what I just went over there. Right now, I don't have an endpoint set up to actually create characters. It's more of still a testing feature, right? So when the when JRealm data is started for the first time, it's going to go look for the account that was created, the root account, admin account, and then it's going to, using that account, it's going to create a character, specifically a rogue, right? This is, of course, going to be variable, and you'll be able to click a button in the UI and have that send a request, which will actually create your character. So right now you only have one character. I guess if you built it from source and added that, it'd be pretty easy. You could just put a record in the database yourself if you wanted to, but this is how it's set up right now. So, these are things I just mentioned. And the way the saving is set up right now is every 20 seconds. And, of course, I need to add hooks for like when the player exits a dungeon. I need to save, right, when they disconnect. I need to save their state before they disconnect. But right now, it's just every 20 seconds, an asynchronous save function will get kicked off on the server side, right? So the client itself is not making requests directly to the data service, right? That would be pretty insecure to let them do that. So I've opted to do it all through the server for right now. That'll be an ongoing process, though. So other than the data integration, I've done the normal bug fixes, etc. So now I've got a nice white bag for untiered items to drop in, which is pretty fun. There was a bug with text effects getting rendered multiple times that I fixed. It's no longer an issue, so it's nice and clean, well, sort of clean, text animations and displays on the client now. And then just to smooth things out a little more, I've added optimistic bullet and enemy movement updates on the client, right? So the server will still be the master for their positions, but the client, since it's running at the same, tick rate as the server, he's more than welcome to update their positions to where he thinks they'll be until the server comes and, changes that, right? So I did a test where I was pretty far away from the server I was hosting and noticed that, enemies would jump around, teleport more or less, right? And so this will, instead of teleporting, it'll be more of a rubber banding thing if there's any disconnect or delay in the packets actually arriving. So that is about it. If you want to, since this is public now, you can go take a look at the full changelog. And I've also updated the README a little bit just to give a better description. I added some images and just a note that after release 030, you are now required to run JRealm Data. I've also updated the program arguments, so it's a little different, right? It's account email and character UUID. Those map to database data that we're going to look up when you send your initial connect. But right, so the next thing we're going to go over is JRealm Data. So I'm not doing public releases of this because it's like a 50 megabyte thing, and I think GitHub only gives you like a gig or so. I'll have to confirm that. Maybe I'll do releases, or maybe I'll set up like a build server. But for right now, you're going to have to build it yourself if you want it. But you are more than welcome to do so. So I provided steps. The only thing I didn't mention here, I'll need to modify that, is you need MySQL, obviously. So run it in Docker, install it for your OS, do whatever you see fit there. But the only other ones, JDK 11 plus for building the source, and Apache Maven is the build tool. So yeah, and to build it, you need JRealm, the game itself, in your Maven local, because there's a dependency on the game data manager, which loads the JSON and stuff, right? So I use that to manage some of the data routines within the data application. But yeah, so that's that. Yeah, this was a pretty big change, but I'm excited to get it done. And right, so the good thing about this is, because of the architecture I chose, the binaries for the server and client have not increased in size, even though we've added all this functionality, which is great, right? I know we have our big data application over there, but that can run on an entirely separate server for all we're concerned, and I think this is a good way to pick it up. So the only things we've added, right, are in the server mostly. So the server is going to use the built-in Java REST client to reach out to the data application. And that's how that flow is supposed to go. So let's go ahead and do our demo here. So we're set up here. Sorry, let's run. I think our data service is already running. Okay, yeah, so it's already running. So you'll see, actually, let's look at the database first, just so you can see how that's sort of laid out. So let's close all these. So we have these new tables, account and auth. These are for storing password data. I've gone over that in the coding session, but the new tables are player account, which is essentially the link between their authentication data and their actual in-game account, right? It's two separate concepts. This is like a security account. This is their in-game account. So it's kind of the difference. So we have player account, player character stats, player chest, and player game item. So these should be pretty self-explanatory, but so as you can see, the one character I'm going to play as is this one here. It's got this UUID. And to show you what that UUID means, right, because I've changed the run configuration for this, you can see that character UUID is in fact what I need to pass to choose that character, and it'll load the respective stats and items, all that good stuff. So then we have character stats, and you can see I've played on this character a little bit. I think he's like level 15 almost. So I've put a bunch of XP on it, just play testing. So yeah, his stats are stored here. These are updated every 20 seconds from what the server state is. And we have a chest. I haven't done much work on this because I haven't implemented the chest loading or item loading into the vault. But essentially, this player has one chest in their vault. And the way the game item table is laid out is these are just references, right? So the actual data that is underlying these is going to be responsible for the server to load, right, from its game items. So I've designed it to only be a reference to where this file is the master, and the item ID maps to this game item ref, this item ID. So the way this is set up is the item can either be in a chest or it can be on a character. Right, so this item, that one, is in a chest here, and these are all the items on my character currently. Their slot index is stored because there's no ordering here, so that's the best way I figured out to do it. And what we can do is, well, since we've got our data service running, let's just explain how the connection logic has changed a little bit. So And our server game logic, we have a couple things, right? So do login now. We are now going to try and get a session token back, right? So we're going to authenticate. And then, right, that's going to get us a token. This do login remote method, that's using the email and the password that's passed from the client. Based on that, right, we're going to, I have this throw commented out right here because I'm still testing things. So realistically, right, if any of this fails, I do need to throw here. But right now I'm letting it get into a broken state to test this stuff. So that's something I'll change, but it works for now. So that's all you need to know. Right. So what we're doing here, right, we have this data service in the server game logic, and he's actually going to execute a GET request to the data service, and that's going to get their account back. Then we're going to look for the character through their characters, find the one that equals the one that is passed in the login request, and basically, yeah, populate, load their equipment, and then apply their stats. So that's basically all that happens there. And then, so that's the login loop, right? And then here, right here, so we have begin player sync, which runs every 20 seconds while we're not shut down. And then we have this persist player sync, which I wrote this little helper for, which just wrap this in a completable future, which lets it run completely async from everything else going on in the server, which is the best way I found to do it to prevent lag. So what we do for the persist player routine is for all of our realms and for each of the players in our realms, we're going to go get their account data, right? So get account ID, same routine that was happening over here in server game logic for the login. And we're going to filter to find this player's character. So they're match up by UUID. And if it is present, we're going to serialize their stats, which these are just helper methods I wrote to create our DTOs out of the player data, and then get the new items, which is same thing, serializes their current inventory. We're going to set those, and then we're going to call the save stats endpoint or save character endpoint and pass the character DTO's body. We'll get the response back with the update, and we can print a success. So with all that being said, let's test it out here. So we've got our data application running, and should load in as my rogue. All right, it was great. So you can see all my items that I've collected. This is pretty fun, right? You might notice you can see my XP. So I think we had. Yeah, let's just get to level 15 here. Oh my god, a lot of enemies. So you can kind of see. I don't know if you can really tell from the video, but the bullet movements are a lot smoother. They don't jump around as much. I need to probably change the idle behavior a little bit because they just look like they're jumping around by default. But it's a lot smoother especially when it starts lagging. But pretty responsive. I'm happy with how the game plays at this moment in terms of like responsiveness and how the stuff looks on the client. So actually, let's kill some of these enemies. Get some. Or here, let's get that def ring. Okay, perform. Okay, so we just persisted, so I can close that down. I should have that much XP. So we can go check here in our character stats. Boom. So our XP has been updated. And we should have one more game item here. Or a different one. Yep. So now we've got a def ring somewhere. So, yeah. That's about it. Let's see, what else do I have to talk about? Yeah, so I don't know. I think that's it. Yeah. All right. Well, this is going to be a short update, but it's a very cool update. I'd like to see people interact with the GitHub repositories a little bit. I know I still haven't set up to share URLs on YouTube. I don't know why I have to do that. So maybe I'll do that and try and include those in this include the repo links in the video description, but we will see what's good with that. So yeah, I appreciate you guys sticking around. Appreciate it if you subscribed, if you liked what I was talking about, or you're interested in the project. But appreciate it and have a good day.